I'd like to welcome everybody here today. As we mentioned earlier, this is one of the largest, if not the largest crowd we've had for one of our induction banquets, and we're so happy that everybody's here. But this time I think everybody in the room knows that none of us would be here if it wasn't for our fearless leader who's not with us, Tom Schmay. Now, Tom, I know, is watching on the RacinBoys.com webcast right now, so if everybody could just give a small round of applause for Mr. Schmay at home. You know, I think everybody kind of followed along with the Facebook and all the press and the phone calls that, you know, Tom got sick and Tom was hospitalized, and, you know, we were really afraid that we weren't going to have Tom around anymore. But miraculously, through everybody's prayers and his sister's help, she stayed with him every day in the hospital, got a cot and slept right on the bed next to him. And the many people who made trips, you know, to Des Moines to the hospital to see Tom, all the encouragements they got through your cards, your prayers, you know, it really made a difference. I think that's what pulled Tom through. And Tom really has had a different change in attitude in his life, really. And I was fortunate enough to get to sit with him when we did the going away party for Tom on Wednesday a couple weeks ago. And Tom told everybody he's so fortunate and thankful to be alive. He's got a different outlook on life, and he said every day is a blessing. He said whether I'm on a walker or a wheelchair or sitting in a chair, he goes, I'm alive. And he goes, and that's all that matters. So we're so thankful, Tom. Thank you for all you've done for the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum, and for sprint car racing, and for putting up with me for 9 years while you showed me all this stuff that's going on. Thank you, Tom. Thanks again for everybody for all your prayers for Tom. This time, I always like to take a minute to introduce our board of directors, and if you could hold your applause until all of them are standing up. Our fearless leader, Jeff Savage, is here with us today. Mike Husted is here. Larry Bowes cannot be with us from Eldora Speedway. He has a big event, as always, there. Aaron Crocker is busy today, but at our board meetings. Kendra Jacobs is on our board. Steve Van Wyk, if you'd stand up. Steve's with us today. Bob Myers is with us today. Mike Larson is with us today, and also Tony Bachhoven. Guys, thank you. Thank you guys for all you do. People ask us, how do we get to be on the board of directors for the Hall of Fame? And I explain it to them, and usually about 3/4 of the people say, you mean we don't get paid? No, these guys don't get paid. We're a nonprofit organization. They do this out of their love for the sport. They attend meetings across the country, and the meetings sometimes last 2 or 3 hours, and we look at paperwork and bookwork and analyze everything the Hall of Fame does to make sure that we're spending your donations the best way possible. So thank you for your donations, and thank you for your encouragement for our board that's with us. Next group of people I'd like to welcome that's here, and again, if you could hold your applause until the end, is our National Induction Committee. These are the guys who actually do the nominations and voting on who goes into the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. This year, we're very fortunate. We have a great group of our induction committee with us. Dave Argabright is with us. Again, if you'd hold your applause, Mike Arthur, Doug Auld. You can stand up, Doug. Larry Ball Jr. is with us. Alan Brown is with us. Bill Hagland is with us. Dick Jordan is with us. Gene Lynch, I know you're here. John Mahoney, thank you for coming. Tony Martin is with us. Bob Mays, I know Bob is with us. Lynn Paxton is with us, and thank you for the great time we had last night, Lynn Paxton. Pat Sullivan, Pat, stand up there. Dave Van Patten, I know Dave's with us in the back of the room. Dave, thank you for coming. Also, Bill Wright is with us, and Steve Zotke. If you could give these guys a round of applause, please. One of the reasons I think there's so many people that keep coming back to this event is because it's a lot of fun and they get to see a lot of their friends here every year. Those are our inductees. These are the true ambassadors of sprint car racing who've given so much of their life to us. We'd like to take a minute to recognize all of our National Sprint Car Hall of Fame inductees who made the trip back to Knoxville to be with us. If you would hold your applause until the end. We'll start with Johnny Anderson. Johnny's with us today. Dave Argabright is with us. Mike Arthur is with us. Tom Bigelow, I know Tom is here. Alan Brown is with us. Shane Carson is with us for both himself and for his father, Bud. Thank you, Shane, for being with us and everything you do for us. Poncho Carter is with us for himself and also for Pappy, Dwayne Carter. Gene Crucian is with us today. Jack Elam is with us today. Jack, it's good to see you. John Gerber, Jim, his son, is with us today. Thank you, Jim, for being with us. Rayleigh Goodwin is with us today. Linda Hallebrand is with us for her father, Ted Hallebrand. Dick Jordan is with us today. Gene Lynch, again, John Mahoney, Gene Mardernis. Jack Miller's nephew is with us today. We'd like to welcome him. Tony Miller, thank you for being with us. Jimmy Oskey is with us today. Lynn Paxton. Let's see, Babe Stapp. Steve Stapp is with us for both himself and for his father today. So Steve, thank you for last night and being with us today. Dorothy Trossel is with us today for Bob Trossel. Bobby Ward is back with us. Thank you, Bobby, for making the trip here. And also Janice Wilkerson is with us for Billy Wilkerson. Thank you all for coming to Knoxville today. We don't get a group like this that really supports the Hall of Fame and knows about what our Hall of Fame's, everything that's going on very often together. So this is a time when I kind of like to do just a quick update on what's going on at the Hall of Fame. If you've been by the building, you've seen our new staging building. That was our Expand the Dream campaign we did for 5 years, and everybody probably in this room and all the other people helped us raise money to build that building. It's a wonderful asset for the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame to have that building that we can use to stage new events like our current running Salute to Champion Sammy Swindell. Also a place to have cars come in before they go in the museum and a place to park them after they're finished. And also a place for us to do work to build exhibits for inside the museum. Having that space is going to make a lot of difference for our museum moving forward. So thank you all for that. The next step for our museum moving forward, and some people in the room have heard about this and some of you have not, is our Brian Clausen Suite Tower project. We're in the process of building 12 new suites, a new building just to the west of our Hall of Fame. This new building is a $3.4 million project. It's a major project, and without the Marion County Fair Board, the City of Knoxville, the Board of Supervisors, our Board of Directors, and everybody else that's helping us, we wouldn't even have the paperwork done yet for being where we are today. Right now, we do not have all the money to build this building. We have about half of the money to build this building. But if you look at it from a business standpoint, we cannot wait any longer to build a building. We have people waiting for suites. We have construction costs that are going up roughly 10% a year. And the longer we wait to build this building, the more it's going to cost us. So our Board of Directors is stepping forward, and we are going to start construction in June, this month, just a few weeks away. We are going to hold a groundbreaking ceremony, and if anybody is in the area on Thursday, June the 15th at 12 o'clock, that's when we're going to break ground for our new Brian Clausen Suite Tower building. And a lot of people that we've talked to about donating to this project are asking us, why are you building another building? Well, if you've been at the Hall of Fame on race nights or during the Nationals, we're maxed out. We have a waiting list of people that want to sit in suites with us. That's revenue that could be sustaining the Hall of Fame and museum for many years to come. So we need the room. But probably the two most important things, which Richard Marshall, who is spearheading this project with his wife Jennifer, myself, and our board, we truly feel that we want to do something to honor Brian Clausen and his legacy, everything he's done for sprint car racing and accomplished with his lifetime and after lifetime in sprint car racing. Also, we want to make sure that long after all of us are gone, that our kids and grandkids have a place to come like this, like the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum, to enjoy with their families. This building will give us the long-term financial security to keep the building in operation for many years to come. So there's two things. We want to honor Brian Clausen, and we want to help the Hall of Fame sustain its financial security. We are in very good financial security standpoint right now, but as everybody in this room knows, the costs don't go down as we continue to go through this process in racing. The costs only go up. And so for us to keep pace, we've got to move forward. And that's what we're doing with this building. The new building is going to take 10 months to build. So if we can stay on track with our construction, we should have the building open in April of 2018 for opening night at Knoxville Raceway next year. Again, special thanks to the Knoxville Raceway folks, Marion County Fair Board Association, for listening to me at their meetings talk about this. We've got to do a lot of work to get this building in. The water spigot that the water truck you see at the races in Turn 2, that's got to be moved to the infield. That's going to be some work for all of us. There's going to be a little bit of a headache to do construction on race nights because everybody pulls their truck and trailer out of Turn 2 and you know what that's like when it rains and how slick that can be. So it's going to be tricky, but we've got to get it done now, or else we're just looking at more costs down the road. So I know Tom's listening at home and shaking his head yes. Tom's a strong proponent of getting this done, and I think Richard Marshall and his wife probably could talk about it more than I can, because they've been across the country talking with people about helping us with this building. And if it wasn't for Richard and Jennifer, probably we wouldn't be starting right now, to be honest with everybody in the room. We sat in my office during the Knoxville Nationals last year, and we really hammered out some details on why it's so important to do this now and not wait for it. We've looked at the project for quite a long time. And so that's the next step for the Hall of Fame, is our Brian Clausen Suite Tower building. Again, mark your calendars for June 15th. If you can't be with us, we'll find RacinBoys or one of our friends to do a webcast for us and get that out across the world so everybody can watch from home. We've got great donors who have helped us lay a good foundation. Kyle Larson and his family are helping us. Ricky Stenhouse, his family are helping us. Of course, Richard Johnson, Marion County Fair Board Association, Wells Fargo Bank. All these people are contributing to help us get this building built. I think a lot of people, myself included, when you see a building starting to be built, you think, oh, good, they've got the money and they're going to build that building. Well, this is the case. Well, oh, good, we're building the building, but we still need some of the money. So if you know anybody that can help us, please have them call me at the Hall of Fame. I'd be glad to talk with anybody about any amount of a donation or anything in kind. I think some people know when we built the staging building, we got very fortunate that CNC Demolition tore down the old car wash for us, and they donated that. That saved us a lot of money. Also, MC Power Company out of Lee Summit donated all the electrical work. I mean, they donated the material, the labor, everything for that. And that saved the Hall of Fame a lot of money, and we would not have that building up as quick as we did without everybody's help. So I think somebody in the room, and I'm not going to mention their name, said, well, don't call me for anything because I can't donate anything. And you never know what you can donate if you think about it. It doesn't have to be money. A lot of people can help or know somebody that can help in a different way, and I think that's what we're talking about. Jeff Savage, our board president, I think it's your turn to come up and say a few words. I think everybody knows Jeff. If you don't, they know his father, Tom. Jeff, come on up. Normally I'd hand the mic to you at this time, but you know, this is your last time you're going to get off our board as president. You've been on through our Expand the Dream program to build a staging building. You've watched us grow, the museum grow, everything inside, you know, just pick up pace. And you've seen from before we started the Salute the Champion program with Tony Stewart to what we're doing now with Sammy Swindell with cars we're going to have up in the air here in a few weeks. And we just want to thank you for not missing a board meeting and always being there for us. Thank you.
It has absolutely been my pleasure, as you know. Bob, love this sport. So from the board of directors to everybody here, thank you. Welcome. Great to have this size of a group here today. Thank you very much. To the 8 folks that get to join the ultimate fraternity today, and for the 4 of you that are here, congratulations. And thank you for all you have done for this sport. It is fantastic to recognize you today. In this role as president, we get the opportunity every year to give the President's Award. So this is an award that we give from the Hall of Fame to those folks that have really helped us in so many different ways. Over the years, it was a golf tournament. It was being here every event to help us move chairs and tables. And this year, we're actually going to recognize 2 folks. Bob talked about the movement of the Hall of Fame and the great work that's going on with the staging building and then the Brian Clausen Suite Tower. I got to tell you, I took this job like 8 years ago. And when I did, I called the guy that just left the board to get some insight as to what's going on. And little did we know that 8 years ago till today, his involvement would remain very high and very strong. The staging building that we are looking at today, it is up, it is working, it's functional, it is all done. And it is in great honor and respect for the guy that helped us get there most of the way. So this year's President's Award, First President's Award, goes to Roger Johnson. Roger, come up here. Where are you? There he is. And Betsy, wouldn't be without you too. I know, but we wouldn't have done this without you as well. Come on up here. So Roger and Betsy, thank you for all that you have done for this organization. We really would not be here today if it wasn't for the two of you and what you have been able to do for us. I don't know, any comments, anything you would like to say to this group today?
Well, these two know that I asked them not to do this. God's blessed us with the ability to help people. And part of being on the board was the responsibility to help promote sprint car racing in a way that Tom Schmay had on his mind. Our dear friend always talked about preserving the past and promoting the future. So in the years that I was on the board, those were the things we focused on. And the building of buildings was part of that in our thought processes. Doug, Auld, and I kind of ramrodded some things to get some changes made that Tom wanted. We looked at bringing Bob on board. All of that has worked out so well for everyone. So the contribution to help grow the Hall of Fame was sort of natural. But I want to tell you, there's no way that someone like me really deserves to be a part of what's going on here right now. It's you guys that have made racing your life, whether you're a car owner, whether you're a driver, or whether you're a lifetime sponsor. Because when you have a business, you focus on your business, and I did that. When I got the opportunity to go racing in 1990, we were able then to start giving back into racing. But it wasn't my life. So it's a little bit that I give back, and you guys are the ones that have given your life. And thank you for letting me be a part of it.
So we mentioned that there are two of them this year, but before we get to that second one, this always happens, and so when we list off all the inductees that are here, I know we missed one, and I'm not sure if we missed more than that, but Doug Clark is in the back with us too. Doug Clark went in last year, so Doug, thank you for coming back and being part of this induction ceremony this year. Stand up, let us know that you're here. Thank you, Doug. All right, so we're going to do a second President's Award this year, and it's much in the same vein. We're going through this growth right now at the Hall of Fame, and buildings are part of it. Bob mentioned that he was approached last year about some of that growth. And then we had kind of a tragic accident last year in which Brian Clausen, of course, lost his life. And in order to honor that, the idea was sprouted and brought up, and so this next suite tower that we have will have his name on top of it. But it's because of our next recipient that is very much a reality. So for all of the time, all of the work, and frankly, all the dollars that this particular family has put into it, our next President's Award goes to Richard and Jennifer Marshall. Jennifer, 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 Jennifer. We will shame you into this. Come on up. You are very important to this organization. Thank you. Like always, it is a duo. It is a twosome. There are always smart brains behind most of these particular things, and here they are, both of them. You guys, thank you very much. We really would not be where we are today and be looking at the growth that we're looking at without these two here. Comments or thoughts for us?
First of all, Lauren Stewart, come on up. Brian's better half. You didn't bother to say you were going to do this. Roger's a hard act to follow. One thing we share in common is how fortunate we are to be able to get back to the sport that we all enjoy. And this next expansion of the Hall of Fame in the suites is something I would have never envisioned. Thanks a lot to this guy right here, Bob, for having that vision and kind of nudging us along with the rolling joke for the last 5 years. Every time we come to the Nationals, is walk in, Bob just laughs at us. Where are we on the waiting list for a suite? So he says, I've got a way to solve that problem. So we did a lot of soul searching, and it really is about giving back to the sport we all enjoy. A lot of you may not know that the suite income, the rental of the suites, is the #1 source of income that sustains the Hall of Fame. So keep that in mind when you're considering a gift for this next project, which is tax deductible, by the way. We were also given the opportunity to name this project, and unfortunately we had just lost Brian about 3 weeks before this came up, and that was a really easy answer to get back to Bob. So please consider the project. It's you go to the Hall of Fame, they've got a rendering of it when you walk in. It's going to be a fabulous building with our luck and fundraising, and hopefully not too bad of a winter, we'll be able to open for the 2018 race season. So thank you guys.
Thank you, guys. Let's give these guys a round of applause for everything they do for us. Lauren?
So I was sitting back there in the back of the room when Roger and his wife came up, and I said, man, that looks like the original Jennifer and Richard. Richard and Jennifer, very humble people, but they do a ton for the sport of sprint car racing. They've poured their heart and soul into this project, working with Bob in the Hall of Fame on the Brian Clausen Suite Tower. And it's an incredible honor. Really excited that they're a part of it, and they've put so much work into it. But beside that, they do a lot for the sport that goes unrecognized, and they really are here just because they love it, and they love being able to give back. And so yeah, thank you guys so much for all you've done for Brian, and you continue to do for him and his legacy.
Thank you all very much for coming.
All right, thank you guys very much. Again, it just doesn't happen without folks like that and everybody in this room. So with that, I do want to say the last 8 years I've never met anybody in my life that can direct an organization like Bob Baker can. He is a phenomenal asset to the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. So if you get a chance, be sure to say hi to Bob. Thank you for the last few years. God bless you all.
Thank you, Jeff. Now for the professional part of the program, Mr. David Argabright. Dave, thank you so much. It's great to have you back with us.
Thank you. You can go sit down now. Well, you know, this great turnout is just a wonderful tribute to this institution and the people who are a part of it. Roger touched on something in his comments, and he's exactly right. To be inducted in the Sprint Car Hall of Fame, you have given a significant amount of your life to the sport. There's no other way to do it. I've watched this for a long time, and you can't do this and do it well without a great deal of sacrifice and dedication to the sport and what you do. So this moment represents, in a very real sense, the pinnacle of a person's professional life. And this is a great moment. It's a great day. It's a day that will be remembered by this person and their family for many years to come, a lifetime. So what I ask of all of you is your respect and your attention. Please silence your cell phones. Please don't text Cousin Irma 38 times while somebody's up here being inducted. These people worked very hard to get here, and we want this moment to be all about them. There's some great things happening with the Sprint Car Hall of Fame. It's just a privilege to be a part of it. Patrick and I have shared this task for many years now, and I just can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be on this day than standing up here with all of these great people right here. So Without any further ado, we will get the induction process started, and I will begin by introducing my colleague, Mr. Patrick Sullivan.
And by the way, one of the processes involved is that we do have the inductee go back to the corner of the room with their plaque to have their photo taken. First inductee is Earl Cooper. A few summers ago, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway did something they only do for special occasions. They brought the Marmon Wasp out of the Speedway Museum with a plan to turn a few ceremonial laps. Chosen driver was one of the most accomplished and revered of them all, four-time Indianapolis 500 winner Rick Mears. Mears was predictably thrilled, but it did not take him long to realize that he was not equal to the task. Rick, as you recall, had suffered devastating injuries to his feet during his Hall of Fame career. And it turns out he simply lacked the strength to operate the pedals. Call of the bullpen was in order, and out trotted three-time Indianapolis winner Johnny Rutherford. The affable Texan donned an appropriate helmet and headed out to the track. Soon thereafter, Rutherford returned, took off the helmet, and looked around exclaiming, "I have no idea how anybody did this." I shared this story because there is a well-worn cliche that comes into play when we consider the remarkable career of people like Earl Cooper. Cooper recorded his greatest feats long before the word sprint car, or a concept called sprint car racing, entered the common vernacular. Thus, it would be easy for all of us involved in this style of racing, in particular the drivers we recognize today, to say that they stand on the broad shoulders of Earl Cooper. But there's one problem. Cooper didn't have broad shoulders. Not at all. In fact, the slight man weighed approximately 120 pounds. Why is this important? It makes everything he accomplished even more remarkable. As Lone Star JR can attest, the steering, the rudimentary brakes, the remarkable G-forces sustained on board tracks, and the sheer endurance needed to negotiate real road courses by all rights should have overwhelmed him. But Cooper was equal to the task, and his 3 national championships underscore that he was one of this nation's first true superstars. Cooper was born in Broken Bow, Nebraska in December of 1886. The burg was the county seat of Custer County. At the time of Earl's birth, was a town of about 1,800 hardy souls. It took moxie to survive the plains in this period, and Eli and Anna Cooper showed they had this trait in spades when they loaded up and headed for San Jose, California, 5 years after Earl, the youngest of their 3 children, was born. As a teen, Earl, who was already fascinated with all things mechanical, found work in a local garage. And it led to an incident which was often retold in the nascent days of auto racing. In 1904, Cooper helped owner C.H. Letcher prepare a 1-cylinder Cadillac for a 5-mile race at San Jose's Agricultural Park. When it got close to the day of the race, Letcher declined to allow the 17-year-old Cooper to race the craft, a decision that left his young employee crestfallen. Undaunted, Cooper borrowed another caddy from a local woman, and in the late stages of the race, he sailed by his employer and claimed the victory. His boss was unimpressed, and perhaps because the lad had embarrassed him, he fired his young mechanic post-haste. Not to worry, Cooper would land solidly on his feet. He would find more work as a mechanic, and when he developed a steady relationship with Reeves Dutton, a riding mechanic, they became stars in the wild and woolly local racing scene known as the Grapefruit Circuit. It was fun, but the ceiling for the talented Cooper was much higher, and soon he was a prime-time player in the major leagues of racing. He made his AAA debut in 1911 and then moved south to Los Angeles and found employment in the Walter M. Brown Company, the local stud dealer. This proved to be a game changer. He was invited to join the official studs racing team, became a full-fledged member of what was known as the White Squadron. He scored one win during the 1912 championship trail on the road course at Tacoma. Then he took his game a notch higher. In 1913, he made 6 starts. He won 5 times and placed second in the other, and he was named national champion. He also added to his fame by appearing in the movie Speed Kings with Mabel Normand, one of the real sirens of silent films, and the famous Fatty Arbuckle. Then, as racing so often goes, he suffered an accident during an exhibition race in San Jose in November. Because of his injuries, the 1914 season was largely a write-off. But if you want to know just how good this guy was, consider his second national championship. In 1915, he ran 14 times, won 5, and was second on 4 occasions. Yet, what made this remarkable is that he excelled on road courses, on the dirt. He also won, imagine this, $20,000 on the 2-mile cement oval at Minneapolis, also known as Concrete Speedway, and he ran up front on the lethal and ultra-fast board tracks. After Stutz withdrew from racing in the 1915 season, Cooper was able to keep a car. Perhaps due to the transition, he was locked out of Victory Lane in 1916, although he had plenty of quality finishes that included a 3rd and a 5th at the board track in Des Moines. Once again, by his standards, a poor year followed a great one. In 1917, 100 years ago, Cooper snared his 3rd national championship, a season marked by wins at Ascot, Chicago, Tacoma, and Minneapolis. Dirt, pavement, and boards. From this point on, Cooper would retire, unretire, retire, and unretire. And every time he came back, he demonstrated he was still capable of winning. As late as 1924, he made a spirited run at a 4th national title, but fell short of Jimmy Murphy, who had lost his life at Syracuse. And amazingly, he would race until he was 40 years old, an unheard of thing in that day and age, and actually finished on the podium at the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. By 1928, he gave up racing for good. He built race cars with his old friends Reeves Dutton, and even served as a chief steward for the famous Mobile Economy Run. He passed away in October 1965, but when he did, he possessed a record that will never be eclipsed. In the history of championship racing under the AAA banner, no one accumulated more points than Earl Cooper. He ran at Indianapolis 7 times and was on the pole in 1926. But he is in the conversation of the best never to win at the Brickyard. And because he was such a quiet and unassuming man, the spotlight never quite shined on him as it did famous barnstormers of the era like Barney Oldfield and Bob Berman. Perhaps writer Bill Hunter said it best when he wrote that Cooper was perhaps the most underpublicized and under-acclaimed driver of his time. But that said, he is already the member of several Halls of Fame, and today he joins another. Earl Cooper, a member of the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame, here to accept the award, a man who knows a lot about racing in that era, Larry Ball Jr. Larry, I know that you have a great satisfaction and interest in racing that time, and Earl Cooper, we're talking about truly one of the best early superstars.
Right. I mean, you talked about how small of a man he was, and to be able to drive those cars the way he did was very impressive. Corona was one of his big races, and they call it a road race, but it was basically a 3-mile dirt oil circle, and the speeds were incredibly high, very dangerous. And, he would outlast it. The one race, he won both races in the same day, where he ran the small displacement engine and had to just keep going an extra 50 miles and beat the big cars. He's one of the only guys that ever got 2 AAA championship wins in the same day. But yeah, he was, like you said, he was kind of the hard luck guy at Indy, but he won on everything. Tacoma was a 2-mile dirt oval. He won at Phoenix on the dirt. And, again, it wasn't a sprint car era yet, but, these are all the guys that were doing the same thing. And, he's just a very successful first multiple champion. So.
I had a conversation on a plane doing an IndyCar race with some of the observers and mechanics, and I told one of them, do you have any idea how fast those guys went on the board tracks in those cars? And they went blindingly fast.
Oh, yeah. I think at Indy they didn't get over 100 miles an hour until like 1918 or 1919. At Des Moines, they were doing it on a mile board track in 1915. And the record was Atlantic City, I think it was 147 miles an hour in 1927, and that stood until 59 when Daytona opened for any closed circuit. So, yeah, they were incredibly fast.
I always feel that one of the great moments of the Hall of Fame is when we recognize someone like him, because he could easily be forgotten. We talked about his 3rd national championship 100 years ago, but that's one of the reasons why we're here.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's people, even at the Speedway that don't remember these guys, and if it wasn't for them, there wouldn't have been the guys that came after, probably. So, they laid the groundwork, certainly.
Thank you very much, Larry, and another round of applause for Earl Cooper. Our next inductee is John Singer. As a young man, I would take trips with my parents and grandparents from my home in Kansas City, Kansas to the Lake of the Ozarks. Sometimes we would shoot south on I-70 onto Missouri's Highway 5. And after traveling through tiny towns like Fortuna, Tipton to me seemed like a metropolis. Tipton was at one point the eastern terminus for the Butterfield Overland Mail Company. But what interested me more was the big 8-ball on the water tower and the impressive neon sign in front of the Fisher Billiard Table Company. And one of the employees at that plant, at least for a time, was John Singer. John was born a bit to the west in Sedalia, Missouri in October 1939. His father was a wizard with heavy equipment, and he was frugal enough to put some money aside. And ultimately, they purchased 245 acres south of Tipton. The family would acquire even more property. And as an active farm, a range of equipment was essential. And that same equipment needed constant maintenance and repair. John Singer learned a lot about 2 things in those formative years: how engines work and the necessity to work hard if you wanted to get ahead. He decided to strike out on his own as a teenager, made it to Kansas City, spent some time there, and he eventually enlisted in the United States Navy. Like many young people, he benefited from his time in the service and emerged far more mature than when he arrived. That wasn't just because the calendar kept turning. With his mechanical ability and his natural desire for action, he built a super modified and took it to Capitol Speedway in Holt Summit, Missouri. He gained a lot of wisdom about racing, in particular about cars and drivers. And he came to one pretty reasonable conclusion. If you want to be successful, your best starts come when you have someone who knows what they're doing behind the wheel. Understand this. Singer worked with drivers that would comprise the entire spectrum. And in a story he related to Hall of Fame writer John Sawyer, he admitted that he had singed the ears good on some of those turkeys. One could imagine. He would race with Danny Lasowski's uncle Tommy Corbin and then hook up with owner Keith Barker. In this time frame, he would race with 2 men who would have grand days right here at Knoxville, Jay Woodside and Eddie Levitt. But a fateful trip to the open competition race at the Sacramento Mile in the fall of 1970 brought the relationship with Barker to an end. John took a job in California with master craftsman and Hall of Famer Roger Beck. And while Singer may have already fit the role of the crusty old mechanic, He always kept his eyes and ears open, particularly when in an environment in which he thought he could learn. He toiled building cars, and one delivered to the Cahill brothers was earmarked for their mercurial driver, Jan Opperman. Jan needed help. One of his crew members was Yogi Jansen. And in the presence of Hall of Fame constructor and owner Bob Trossel, Jansen complained of a pesky mole on his body, took out a pair of shop shears, and removed it on his own. It was cancerous, and soon Yogi was fighting a battle he was not going to win. Singer was there to lend a hand, and this was the moment he had been waiting for. With Opp, he had a driver who could make things happen. The result, 26 victories in 1971 and a victory in the Knoxville Nationals. Then the Cahills walked away from the sport, and soon Singer was packing up to help a Lincoln, Nebraska man named Don Maxwell get his own operations in full swing. Leroy Colwait and Gary Swinson purchased one of the cars that emerged from the shop, and with Opp at the controls, they headed to the Winter Nationals at Tampa and nearly swept the card. He would later help Jan sort out the car when Opp had his famous duel with Pancho Carter in the 1976 edition of the Tony Holman Classic at Terre Haute. Historians routinely note this as one of the all-time great duels. In the end, Jan took one of USAC's crown jewels, and Pancho was unhappy. In 1976, he also joined forces with owner Fred Aden and reunited with fellow Show Me State resident Eddie Levitt. In the end, Singer and Levitt each would take their second Nationals win. He would continue to attract great talent. Roger Rager, with whom he nearly won the Western World in Manzanita, Shane Carson, Ron Schumann, Bobby Marshall, and he would make it to Indianapolis, where he helped Bubby Jones and Roger Rager qualify, and in both cases absolutely turned people's heads. However, Indianapolis is always complicated. When he looked around, heading back to Tipton and building engines was not such a bad idea. In 1989, Doug Wolfgang turned to him. Singer remembered Wolfie as just a kid working in Don Maxwell's shop. But in some respects, Wolfie was the driver he thought to be the closest a match with Jan Opperman. Doug had one of his absolutely patented monster years. And with John's help, he too took the top step at the award ceremony at the Knoxville Nationals. It's not the same as it was. We all feel that way as time passes. Singer hit the road with Jan Opperman before the word outlaw was trademarked. It was a time when ingenuity mattered and required more than anything than good old-fashioned sweat equity. In those days, he could easily apply the lessons learned on the farm, in the Navy, and on the road. He was twisting riches as long as his body would allow him. He was essential to the 5-time ASCS Warrior champion, Jonathan Cornwell. He did it his way, and his way proved to be remarkably successful. I had a conversation with one of his drivers, Bobby Marshall. And that conversation was interspersed with stories that frankly had little to do with racing. He talked about him and John being baptized by Jan Opperman at Bull River in Montana. How John would take a contraption on the road that made the sound of a fan without blowing any air that helped him sleep at night. And about a young and eager and excited Steve Kinzer insisting on waking John up just to talk after he'd won the Gold Cup for the very first time. And folks, I ask you, isn't that really what this is all about? It's been an interesting journey. The aforementioned Highway 5, constructed in 1922, is the longest state highway in Missouri. It traverses the entire state. Curiously enough, it intersects with Iowa's Highway 5, and it meanders until it merges where? Highway 92 in Knoxville. It's a slow and steady way to travel from Tipton, Missouri to Marion County Fairgrounds. It takes time. But then sometimes the sweetest apples are the ones on the highest branch. It takes time to reach them, but when you do, the reward is worth it. This journey is now complete. It's time for John Singer to take his rightful place in the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. And here to accept the award is his son, Keith Singer. Congratulations. As we know, these are awards for the family.
Yes, it is. You know, Dad cannot be here because of his health issues and stuff, but he wanted to thank everybody that was, put him in his place. Really, my name is John Keith Singer, so you really have John standing before you. Might go by Keith, but my name is John. But I talked to Wolfgang yesterday, and he told me he wanted me to say this to his grandkids. He said that John Singer was one of the top best 5 mechanics in the country. He said he only had 2 the whole time he raced that he thought was worth a, what.
We know how Wolfie does it.
But anyway, it's an honor and appreciate it. And I wished he could be here, but there's just no way he could be here today. And I want to thank everybody that's made this possible for him. And thanks Shane and Fred Aiden, Danny Peace, and the rest of my family and everybody else that's here, and all the other inductees. Congratulations to all of you. Appreciate it.
You know, John Singer wrote an article and he said he was as tough as a Missouri mule. Is that a good description?
I think so, pretty much, yeah. The last few months has been a little tough on him, but he's come around, and we've been to the shop with Dyno Motors. We finished the motor up. So, yeah, he's pretty tough. We just got to keep going. It's a little slow process right now. It's a day-by-day thing, but he's getting there, and we're getting back in the shop.
So I want to say it again. He was back in the shop working in Dyno and Motors.
That's right. We did it. We dynoed one last week and finished one up last week, so we're back in the shop.
Is that great news or what? Got a round of applause for the family, didn't we? Congratulations. David.
Our next inductee is a man who is no stranger to this stage. Over the past 15 years, he has been a key part of the induction process, and today he takes his place in the spotlight. Pat Sullivan has enjoyed a spectacular career as a PA announcer and as a writer. In the midst of building a highly successful career as a college professor, Patrick turned a part-time passion for racing into a Hall of Fame career. A native of Kansas City, Kansas, Pat first held the microphone in 1990 at I-44 Speedway and Bolivar Speedway, USA. For the next 27 years, he would maintain a frantic schedule that has carried him across the country and brought his voice to a great many speedways. Some of those tracks were big and some were small. Some were famous and some were not. But I can assure you, whenever he picked up that microphone and welcomed the fans to the races, it was with the same enthusiasm and passion every time. Beginning with Open Wheel magazine in 1999, Pat has been a popular and important voice in sprint car racing. He has contributed to several important auto racing books and has authored on his own. His writing continues to be a major contribution to the sport through the pages of Sprint Car and Midget magazine. But let me tell you about Patrick, my friend. He is energetic. I long ago realized that he only needs about 3 hours of sleep a night, and that's how he's crammed about 100 years of living into his life so far. Patrick is passionate. He cares deeply for the sport and the people in it. More than anything else, that has driven him to work very hard throughout his career. He takes a lot of pride in doing things right, and that shows with the quality of his work. He has a powerful memory. His recall of historic dates and details is strong. It isn't easy to win an argument with Patrick. Every great once in a while, I'm able to correct him on some little detail, and that feels good. Because if you're correcting Patrick, you know you're operating at a high level. He is loyal to the things he believes in. Patrick served on the board of directors for this institution, and he has contributed a great deal of time and effort, a lot of it behind the scenes, to various racing and charitable organizations. Most of all, he's a loyal friend to our sport and the people in it. This is a unique moment because Patrick and I have shared this job for quite a number of years now, and typically we will carpool out here each weekend from Indiana, which means that we're spending about 16 hours together in the car each time, and it's a testament to our friendship that through all those years, neither one of us have ever attempted to throw each other out of the moving vehicle. Patrick, I'm proud of you. We're all proud of you. I never had any doubt at all that this date would come. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Pat Sullivan. So I never have interviewed you before. How about that?
I'm scared.
Yeah, you should be. Now, this is a great thing. You brought your family here. That's a great thing.
It is, and because they have to sacrifice so much to do it.
Yep. You know,
I've been scared to death. For those of you who know this, I've been afraid the whole time I'd go completely Brent Kading, and which was one of my favorite inductees because Brent could never, the gigantic man couldn't get a word out. And Rayleigh Goodman told me that if I didn't cry a little bit, he'd be disappointed. So I've already made Rayleigh proud, and that's good.
Man, you do not want Rayleigh mad at you. No. Well, this is, I know it's a difficult thing to process. It's a wonderful feeling when Bob calls you in December and shares the news that you're going to be inducted, and try to describe that moment for us.
It was really interesting because obviously, because I've done this, I'm aware of the cadence of it all. And so we did a Sprint Car 101 at Susanna Stapp's Hoosier Tire Midwest in December, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, Tom Schmay really knows what the outcome is here. And I'm just looking at him, you know. It reminded me of one of my doctoral instructors one time came and looked in a room, and he just was looking for an empty room, and we were in there, and he made this dissatisfied face, and we all interpreted that we'd all flunked out of the program. And so Tom wouldn't make eye contact with me, and I said, well, that's really not going to happen for me. And then Bob called, and I remembered that I thought my heart was going to fall out.
It's just a great thing, and I think because you feel that way, because I felt that way when my time come, anybody that's ever been there, that's the testament of what this institution means.
Well, it should, and I sometimes hear people that sort of minimize it. Now let's lay some important groundwork here. You know, I'm not John Singer or Guy Forbrook or Terry McCarl or Dave or Tony. I'm not those guys. I'm not Rayleigh. I'm not the people that put their butt on the line. I'm not. You know, and I understand that. That's not what I've done. I've had a little small piece of the sport. I've tried to do it the best I knew how. But the stars are the people who did it, not the people who wrote about it or talked about it. I'm honored. It means a great deal to me. But I do think I understand in the sort of the echelon where I'm at. But anybody who says it doesn't mean something to them really needs to get an attitude adjustment, because the reality is that these things don't happen in the spring of your life. You have devoted a lot of your time to it, probably more than you should have. And, you know, to be recognized by your peers in some way that what you did made some difference is just incredibly humbling.
It's a great thing. Now, you're very busy. Tell us about your schedule, what you're working on, projects, things like that.
Well, I'm working on a book with you, John Mahoney. And
yeah, but I didn't want to plug it myself, so thank you.
I know, but that's good. And I have several things in the works with Sprint Car Midget Magazine, and you know, then I write articles about mental health and things that I do for my regular job. I'm a full professor at Indiana University, and I take that job really seriously too. But racing it's not work. I mean, what I've done has never been work. I've been able to announce auto races and write about racing. That's not work. That's fun.
Yeah, I'm going to remind you. I'm going to call you some morning about 2 o'clock when I'm dragging at deadline and say, tell me how fun this is, Patrick.
There's a little of that, yeah, but so much of that is self-imposed. I mean,
Now, don't go there. So, you know, we've talked about this for many years coming out here and what it means in the future. Talk about the years to come. I see lots of new projects. I see your world changing a little bit work-wise where you're going to be able to do even more in this deal.
I don't have any intentions of, I mean, sometimes I see some younger guys and they're talking to me and I'm going, hey, I'm not retired. I just love it, and I don't have any intentions of slowing down. I mean, I'm on John Mahoney's rear about every 15 minutes that there's another book to be done out there. He keeps telling me there's not. There he is. He's back there, and he's dead wrong. We're going to do something. I may be able to devote more time to the sport, but I don't have any intentions of walking away. I love it too much.
What else you want to say up here? Anybody you want to talk about?
Yeah, I really do, and he's giving me the microphone because he thinks that I'll have sense enough to give it back. But listen, I think the thing that one of my great heroes is the hockey announcer Doc Emmerich. Being a hockey player myself, and Doc Emmerich, who's from Indiana, I read a story on Doc, and Doc said that every day he tries to write a note and to send it to someone who has done something nice to him in his life. And I actually tried to follow that. I can't do it every day. But I think the biggest thing that occurs is when these things happen to you, the first thing you should think of, unless you're a complete egotist, is just how many people contributed. I mean, there's luck, there's timing, all that comes into play, but so many people had a hand in the moment. You know, I got asked, I started writing articles for a little newspaper in Missouri, and the owner, Bill Don Willard, called me up and said, do you think you can announce races? I said, I don't know. He says, I like your work. My children were young, and so it was a good time to do that. And Bill Don Willard was great to me. I worked with a guy named Ronnie Williams, an announcer who was very exuberant and loved racing. And I realized right away how complicated it was. There's so much more things happening behind the scenes that fans don't understand. And I'm announcing a race. I meet Bill Hill. Bill Hill writes something about me in Speed Sport News. Bill Marvel, Vice President of USAC, comes up to me and says, you really like this stuff? Yes, I do. Would you like a job at the Speedway? You know, I fainted. You know, like, yes, I'd like a job at the Speedway. Bill Marvel got me a job at the Speedway. And he did all sorts of things for me with that. USAC came to Bloomington. Mike Miles and Mike and Judy Miles are like family to me. They hired me sight unseen. Tony Stewart gave my name to a woman named Sandy Lowe, and I got a job announcing TQs in Bloomington. My first year, I announced it. I still lived in Springfield, Missouri. I was trying to drive home afterwards. And you know, Ron Green comes down from USAC. He likes the work that I'm doing, and suddenly I'm getting jobs at Raceway Park, and then suddenly I get to do IndyCar races, and it just, you know, Ken Evans calls, and I'm getting to do Kokomo Speedway, and it was just great. My wife, when we moved to Missouri, said, would you do me a favor? I'd really like it if you would announce 2 times a week. And I said, okay. And I honored that. I started announcing on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's 3. But, you know, Dick Jordan, the United States Auto Club, has just been huge for me. I mean, he's been my supporter from the very beginning. He's done so many things for me. You encouraged me to write for the magazine. Doug Auld's been my publisher. Tom Schmay asked me to do this. I mean, you know, I heard an interview with John Bon Jovi, and somebody said it was life going well for him, and he said, my life has been good since the doctor slapped me on the butt. And that's exactly what my life has been like. It's just been absolutely blessed. But, okay, we're going to have to regroup, because by far the most important person is right there. That's my wife. My wife is unbelievable. Guys, and you know this, she sacrificed so much for me to be able to do this, so much. She had to haul kids around when I'm announcing races, and she always encouraged me. She thought I could be the president of the United States. I mean, she always sort of felt that way, and I told a story of the Indianapolis Star yesterday, which I had been saving the whole time, and she got to read it, but it's a true story. I became the state director of mental health, in Indiana. My dad came over and says to Cheryl, she goes, well, that's great, because now he's got this job at the state. Probably going to make enough money now that he doesn't have to announce all those races. Now, first of all, that wasn't true. I just was on loan from the university. And my wife said to him, I don't think you understand. He said, announcing races is what makes him happy. And so, like all great, in my opinion, wives, my happiness and my children's happiness were always at the forefront. Nobody else's happiness mattered more to her. And so, when you asked when Bob called, it was for my family. This is something that my whole family did, and I certainly appreciate it. So, thank you, Dave. You've been a great friend. I didn't cry too much today.
You're doing good. You know, I am never surprised when a mental health specialist gets intrigued by racing because, man, there is a case study with every person you meet out there.
Thanks very much.
Pat Sullivan, ladies and gentlemen. Way to go, Cheryl. I like that program of Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You could sell that maybe as one time. So it's only one weekend. I'm going to work on that, Lisa. So our next inductee is a native of Warsaw, Indiana, Tony Elliott. I'd like to tell you about two entities, Tony the Racer and Tony the Man. Tony the Racer had a career that could only be described as spectacular. 40 USAC victories, 2 USAC National Sprint Car Championships, 11 Sprint Car Track Championships in Indiana, and hundreds of race wins. In the late 1980s, traditional sprint car racing seemed to be on the verge of extinction. Even in Indiana, winged racing threatened to become the only form of sprint car racing. For those who loved the traditional form of the sport, it was an unsettling period. But in the early 1990s, Tony joined Dave Darland and Kevin Thomas to rekindle interest in wingless racing. Make no mistake about it, their great duels throughout Indiana inspired a resurgence in the sport. For those who love traditional sprint cars, Tony Elliott played a key role in keeping that form of the sport alive. Tony had lots of exciting wins, lots of big nights, lots of great moments. But he also had lots of heartbreak. You can't be a part of this sport without heartbreak, and Tony had his share. But a defining element of Tony was that it was never very long before he was smiling and laughing once again. That, to me, is what Tony was all about. Across all the miles and all the years, I don't believe I've ever met anyone more upbeat and happy than Tony. It was in his DNA, and it was irrepressible. Tony loved to laugh. I don't know how else to say it. He loved to mess with you. He loved to get after you. He loved to make you squirm. And then, not in a bad way, he loved to laugh with you at the end. A few years ago, Tony began to scale back his racing. He still wanted to run a couple of races a year, the Chili Bowl and the Little 500, because they're both so fun. But he explained to me that it was time to focus on the rest of his life. In a sense, Tony had it all. He was an excellent businessman, he had a great family, he had literally countless friends, and the hard knocks of life had never been able to dull his great warm sense of humor. And he had a career that he could look back upon with pride. There was no shoulda, woulda, coulda. Tony was a star, and his day on this stage was an absolute lock. At this moment, this is when I should be able to look out there and see Tony grinning at me, waiting to come up here. I don't understand why things happen sometimes. I think some things are beyond our ability to understand. But when I got the news that we had lost Tony in late 2015 in an airplane crash, amid the shock and the disbelief was this profound sense of loss that settled over me. And to be honest, it's been very hard to get past that. But this moment here is not about loss. It's about celebrating a brilliant career and a wonderful man who left us much, much too soon. More than ever before, as I stand up here today, I feel a powerful responsibility to represent Tony. He was my friend, and I want to fulfill that responsibility the best I can. So I will tell all of you today that Tony loved sprint car racing. He loved life. He loved all of you. And I know that at this moment he would be very, very proud. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Cindy Bowling Elliott to accept on Tony's behalf. Cindy? You brought the whole family. So do some introductions here.
This is Ryan. This is Jack, Courtney, Randy.
What a great looking group, huh? What a great looking group. So what a great moment. How about that picture?
I know. It's great. I'm so proud. He would be incredibly proud. And I'm honored, and it's a great day. It's a great day, and I'm glad that the whole family, his mom's here, his brother, my sister-in-law, his niece, they all were able to make the trip, and I'm just so thankful that I have them all with me.
You know, you guys have an interesting story. You were childhood sweethearts and then reconnected all those years later, and what a great blessing.
Yes, it was. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun in high school, too. But we had a lot of fun. Yeah, and we had fun with the kids, and going around. Our fondest memories were when going in the motorhome with all 4 kids and traveling to all the tracks, and we had a great time. I remember one time we were at Eldora, and it was the ESPN TV race, and he had been running Ohio Speed Week, and the car had not been that great, and so it was at the end of the road, and we were all tired, and the kids were like in the motorhome, not really paying any attention whatsoever, watching a movie. I was just out there watching the the race, and I was watching Tracy Hines because he was on the top. He was going around. I wasn't really paying attention. Tony was down at the bottom, and he won. And I was like, oh my God, he won. And I realized I had not done my hair. I had no makeup on. It was on TV, and that's all I could do. I was like, oh my gosh, it's on TV. I don't have any makeup on. The kids, I'm waking them up. Come on, let's go. And they're like, we're watching a movie. They were watching Scream. So that was a lot of fun. So, but anyway.
I think it's a fair statement. If you were hanging out with Tony and you weren't having fun, you have a problem. Because that guy, he made you have fun all the time.
That's right. So.
What you remember coming up through Indiana, one of the cool things I always felt was Tony's circle of friends. Whether it was in the southern part of the state, anywhere he went, he had this outgoing personality where, I vividly remember the first time I met him, and this is a really long time ago, and he was just so outgoing. He came right up to me and introduced himself, and it was like we had known each other forever, and that was my first impression, and it was a correct one.
Yes, that is correct. He did like to have fun, and he liked to do a lot of practical jokes and, tap someone on the shoulder over here to see if anybody, and just laugh and thought it was so funny, yes.
Yeah, he had a serious side, too. My friend Rob Klepper tells a story. He was hanging out with him for a summer or whatever, and I think he had moved here from California, he and Clay, and he told about they had not a big hauler, but a big trailer, and they came back from the races the night before, and Tony was driving the truck, and when he turned in a little bit too sharp, and he caught a small tree at the end of the driveway and put a big scratch down the side of their trailer, and Klepper said they were all set to really razz him about it, and they got up the next morning, and Tony had taken a chainsaw and he cut that baby off at the ground. No more tree.
Yeah, that would be Tony, for sure.
And then 5 minutes after he's aggravated, he's fine again.
Correct.
So guys, this is a big moment. I know you have just probably countless great memories, and I think you'd share the idea that Tony would be very, very happy. Yeah. So how about anybody here? Anybody want to say anything? They keep backing away. I don't know what to do. Yeah. Well, those two, Pat and Tony, would have been intertwined anyway. That's pretty fitting. So, well, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. I know you guys have busy deals going on, and to come all the way out here, that's a great thing. He'd be proud of that too. Yep. Cindy, anything else?
No, I just want to thank everybody and thank the committee for his induction. I'm so honored, and he is definitely smiling upon this today. So thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Guys, thank you. Patrick.
Get organized. Our next inductee is Guy Forbrook. When you are young, your dreams are never about being meek or average or poor. They're always about being great and nearly larger than life. For some, that dream is vague, an imprecise longing, but for others, a more focused and defined goal materializes quickly. Dick Forbrook got the racing bug in 1953 while in the military. Stationed outside of Atlanta, Dick began piloting a 1932 Ford Coupe at Georgia's Peach Bowl Raceway. And then, when back in Minnesota, he was soon competing at 212 Speedway in Renville. Thus was launched a career that would last for over 3 decades and result in induction in both the Knoxville and Jackson Speedway Hall of Fame. So it was predictable that Guy Forbrook would want to race too. And he set as his goal to someday be considered among the very best and ultimately make it all the way to Indianapolis. He had what it took to be a champion: talent and desire. At the age of 16, he was the winner of the World Series of Snowmobiling. But in the back of his mind, he was all ready to do more on dry land. He sold a prize Z28. He bought his first stock car. He took it to Rock Rapids, and he won. However, all of his heroes raced sprint cars. And later he would admit that it was all I ever wanted to do. He had a chance to compete with owners like Jerry Franson and later with Leonard McCarl. And he found victory lane. In fact, the first time he raced a 410 sprint car right here at Knoxville, he established a 10-lap record. He was young and determined. He was 100% racing. And as a testament to his dedication, he was in excellent shape, running 5 miles a day as the hot summer sun beat down on him, all the while thinking about his next race and his next big win. There was no reason not to expect 1986 to be a big year. And things came to an abrupt halt. It was just another trip on the lonesome highway when Guy suddenly saw a car swerve into his lane, and when he was face to face with a set of headlights directly in front of him, he had no choice but to take evasive action. He turned hard to avoid the collision and tumbled down an embankment. The accident stretched his spinal cord, and it was soon clear that the damage was significant. He was roughly a month shy of his 24th birthday. He spent considerable time at the University of Minnesota Hospital, where he was the focus of experimental treatment involving electrical stimulation. He was so deeply involved in the research that he became a spokesperson for the hospital and the procedure. In the end, he could stand, but he could not walk. Redwood Falls, Minnesota car dealer Ron Coles was not willing to let Guy Forbrook sit around and stew. Instead, he turned his sprint car operation over to Forbrook. No, he couldn't mount tires or change engines, but he could do a lot. And he was more than willing to get down and dirty, literally, to get the job done. And soon, with drivers like Jerry Riker Jr. and T.J. Giddings, he was going places. He saw veteran Rick Unger standing by the pit gate at Knoxville in 1989, hired him, and against the odds, they put the car in the A main at the Nationals. Also in this time, he hooked up with a part-time racer, part-time munitions worker from Dover, Missouri, named Danny Lasowski. It took some time, but boy, did they ever click. When Coles decided to step away from the sport, he offered the team to Forbrook. What to do? Guy said it himself. Who was going to hire someone in a wheelchair to run a sprint car team? So audacious was he that he went to the bank and he took out a $50,000 loan to go racing. It was a leap of faith. How did it work out? Lasowski won 54 times in a 2-year period, snared track titles at Knoxville and Houston, and that's all well and good, but what about the loan? Guy paid it all off in 1 year. Let's all face the facts. As we documented in John Singer's story, the relationship between a mechanic and a driver can be tumultuous, to say the least. For those who never could get enough of the so-called inside scoop or hot rumor, the Forbrook-Lasowski relationship seemed to be the stock and trade of today's obsession with reality television. Guy just chalked this up to the fact that Danny couldn't stand knowing that Guy could whip his butt, in his words. So they split, they reunited. They split, they reunited. But we'll get back to that later. When the dude left in 1991, Guy turned to a guy whose heart and right foot outweighed the rest of his body, Jack Hodenschild. And Hod responded with 14 wins in the Knoxville title. Then Lasowski returned for 2 more years, 47 more wins, 2 Knoxville titles, and Guy's third at Houston's. Then came another split. The next Knoxville title came in 1995. It was here that Forbrook harnessed the energy of a man with loads of talent, Johnny Herrera. They won 25 times together, and once again, Forbrook planted his flag at Knoxville. Now everyone, close their eyes and imagine what happened next. Well, you got it. Lasowski was back. 21 wins were recorded, and another championship was secured. But now came a significant transition. Forbrook had lost his engine supplier. So when Jack Eldon offered Guy a chance to reunite with Hod and hit the road with the World of Outlaws, he had to jump. He loved Hod, and they did well together. But in 1998, he got a call from 2 men, both Scott Gherkin and Steve Kinzer, and he understood this dynamic so very well. There was no way around it. Steve and Scott just had to get away from each other. And Forbrook had the utmost respect for both men. In fact, he considered his coming on board a stopgap measure to help that team get their ship righted. It was a wonderful experience. In his words, every mechanic should have the chance to work with Steve Kinzer. As Guy noted, not only was Steve supremely talented and smart, but he was also quick to admit his own mistakes and would admit when he was wrong. The result was the World of Outlaws title, and Forbrook was the World of Outlaws Mechanic of the Year in 1997 and 1998. But he took a break from the road. Guy stayed closer to home and was paired with fellow inductee Terry McCarl. They clicked for 12 wins, resulting in another championship at Knoxville and the 4th at Houston's for Guy. Then it was road time again. Greg Hodnett, Jeff Seppert, Hod, Sammy Swindell, And then the next years, he managed to score wins against the World of Outlaws nearly every year. But it was grueling and difficult work. And Guy had heard the pronouncements year after year. There'll be fewer dates, bigger money, less travel. And yet, he always seemed to be staring at another 100 race season. So sometimes you need a break. You got to get wins and titles. And where do you turn? Well, you go back to the dude. And in 2008, the dude and Guy landed atop the Knoxville standings again. The road called. Tim Kading scored 5 wins for Guy. He raced with Aaron Crocker, Craig Delansky, and then more recently Ted Queering dangled a real tempting carrot. The National Sprint Car League, centering on Knoxville and Jackson, was launched. And here was another chance for Lasowski and Forbrook to make history. As you can now imagine, they did. 2015 and 16, they won the NSL title, 2 more championships at Knoxville, putting the number at 11. 11. And as a tandem, Danny and Guy had posted 149 wins together. Guy's cars have won at Knoxville 89 times alone. He has over 270 wins as an owner at 63 different tracks. Today, he is helping his talented son, Brady, who is racing at Jackson, Minnesota. He is already a member, rightfully, of the Knoxville Raceway Hall of Fame. So how do you sum up this remarkable man? Once he was a kid from the North Country who had a dream, but it was a dream that required a realignment. But it's not just a matter of political correctness when we stepped away from the term disabled and replaced it with words like challenged. While we all rarely acknowledge it, each one of us faces challenges that impedes us in some way. Admittedly, some are a bit more obvious than others. Yet, over 30 summers ago, there was no way to deny it. Guy Forbrook faced odds far more stiff than just transferring out of a B main. When Guy was confronting endless days of treatment at the University of Minnesota, he remarked that dealing with pain was no problem. Dealing with forever was something else. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's fair to say that Guy Forbrook has looked forever straight in the eye. He clenched his teeth, and he has given each and every one of us a real-life example of how the right mixture of unbending desire and hard work knows no obstacles, because now his forever is known. He will forever be known as one of the greatest mechanics the sport has ever seen, and he will be ever known as a member of the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Guy Forbrook, and accepting the award, and owner and engine builder himself, Mr. Al Cole. Guy's a remarkable man.
Yes, he is. If Guy was here today, I'm sure he'd like to thank the nomination board, the voting members, all of you in attendance today. This is a tremendous honor. As anybody that's involved with racing understands. Guy works hard. I first met him, I took 2 engines up to him. And there he was in the back room at Cole's Fowler at the Ford dealership, crawling around, measuring the car, swearing the car, doing what needs to be done. Pretty soon you just look, Guy's just a racer.
And a good racer, and I remember, obviously, this was the time in my life when I spent a lot of time up here on regular shows, and it's like, we got the news that Guy had been hurt, and you thought, you knew about the family, and you thought, oh my God, what's he going to do now? Well, I guess he answered the question.
Yeah, well, I think Ron Coles, the Ford dealer, is really the one. He says, I just wasn't going to let him lay around and be sorry. He said, so I got him a job, hired him on, and the rest is history. 200 some wins later, and a room full of he had a lot of people drive good Good drivers drive his cars. So.
Absolutely, because they were prepared.
Yeah, yes. Very seldom does a Forbrook prepared car fall out of a race.
Now he's spending time with his own son.
Yeah, Brady's looks to be an up-and-coming third-generation Forbrook racer. He's in a 305 car up there. They're at Jackson this weekend, and as a side job, he's got, I think, Kerry's sitting on the pole for the Jackson Nationals tonight. They won the feature up there last night, so the guy still knows how to turn a wrench.
Well, we wish he was here. We're glad you were here since you knew him so well to accept it.
Thank you very much. Tremendous honor. Thank you.
Guy Forbrook, ladies and gentlemen.
If you'll indulge me just 1 second, I want to call something out here. Kevin Thomas, where are you sitting? You over here somewhere? Stand up for us, would you? You know, Kevin Thomas had so many great duels with Dave Darland and Tony Elliott. He drove all the way from Indiana through the night to get here early this morning because he said he just wanted to be here to support Darland and Elliott. That's a cool thing, and it ought to be appreciated. Our next inductee is a native of New York, now living in Ohio, Mr. Doug Auld. Over the past 20 years, few people have had a greater impact on the sport than Doug. As the founder and editor of Sprint Car and Midget magazine, his voice has been an important source of guidance and stability. Media coverage is a crucial component of our sport, and through the years it has shaped tens of thousands of people and helped ensure the survival of our sport. I speak from experience. In 1981, Open Wheel magazine was launched, and I was over the moon when I bought that first copy. A magazine about sprint cars. What could be better than that? I was lucky enough to work for Open Wheel for a few years, and Doug was the editor. But the parent company shut down the title in late 2001, and it felt as though our sport had lost a huge part of its identity. Through that dark period, Doug took it upon himself to make sure that the spirit of the magazine could live on. He scraped together every resource he could, and at significant expense and risk, he launched the new monthly title, Sprint Car and Midget magazine. 185 issues later, Doug and the magazine are still going strong. That's a little over 18,000 pages, probably 9,000 photographs, at least 500 excuses from writers and photographers about why their work is so late this month, 501. And thousands upon thousands of readers who were enlightened, informed, and entertained. Because of all those issues and all that midnight oil he burned, people loved the sport that much more. I've worked with Doug now for almost 20 years, and I'd like to tell you what he's all about. I'm not sure I've ever known anyone with more conviction than Doug. He is a man of strong ideas and ethics, and he has shown the willingness to lay everything on the line when it comes to protecting and strengthening our sport. Doug is a man of courage. Maybe it's the New York thing, I don't know, but Doug has never shied away from a fight if it's something he believes in is at stake, even when the fight is difficult and unpopular and the odds are not in his favor. Doug is an intensely loyal person. Even when it's uncomfortable, he will always stand up for his friends. He's an advocate for the little guy, and he's never been afraid to call out a bully. Most of all, Doug loves sprint car racing. Sometimes people are uncomfortable with the things he writes. Sometimes they're angry. Sometimes they say, man, if you love the sport, why would you write something that's critical? And they just don't understand. It's because you love the sport that you say the critical things when they're necessary. It's uncomfortable to acknowledge when something is wrong, and Doug has consistently been a powerful voice as he's tried to help the sport grow stronger and face the things that need addressed. I'll tell you a quick story. When I first met Doug, it was over the telephone. He was introduced as the new editor of Open Wheel magazine. It was a time of great upheaval with the magazine, and I'll be honest, I wondered how long this guy from New York, who was now living in Florida, was going to stick around. I wondered if this was just simply a job where he was finding a place to land for a little while until he moved on. but I soon realized that Doug Auld was absolutely committed to the magazine and to sprint car racing. Doug introduced a wonderful stay-in-school program that encouraged racers to visit schools and help kids see what racing is all about. He served on the board of directors here at the Sprint Car Hall of Fame, including a term as president. He has consistently been willing to give back to the sport. Few people have served sprint car racing with more vigilance and more dedication. That is what led Doug to this moment. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next inductee, Mr. Doug Auld. This is really weird to interview you guys, I got to tell you. Well, it's a great moment. It's a moment you've had some time to think about. What went through, I'll ask you the same question I asked Pat. What went through your mind when you got the call from Bob in December?
It was surreal. It was kind of weird. I kind of had picked that Pat and Steve Beitler would be standing here right now, so it was pretty surreal. It was pretty amazing.
You know, this is a deal that, as I said, it takes a lot of years to get here. And you raced, you've had the magazine. Sprint car racing's been a big deal to you.
Oh, yeah, it's been years. I mean, my dad raced modifieds back in the 50s. We were track from the time I was a little kid. So it's just been a lifelong deal. I mean, and then once I got down to Florida and there was this giant void, it's part of the reason we went down there. And all this racing and no real coverage. And so we started with the radio show and then Tampa Tribune and magazines and all kinds of, announcing at racetracks, a little bit of everything, and then eventually the racing, and obviously sprint car midget the last 15 years, and Oklahoma before that. So.
You know, I'm in an unusual position here that I am aware of what it takes to put a magazine together. Every month you finish it, and just when you kind of breathe, wow, that thing is done, you're immediately confronted with, hey, the next issue is 4 weeks, you got to go. And how do you maintain the energy level over this long a time to continue to do that?
Oh, well, the biggest thing is, when you're surrounded by guys like yourself and Pat Sullivan and John Mahoney, and the better the people you surround yourself with, that just drives the whole deal. I'm just the guy who kind of puts it together. And as you know, it's kind of an odd thing. We're not the stars. Years ago I played in bands in New York, and you got to have your picture taken and played CBGBs in these clubs. And now we're completely 180 degrees for most of my life on the other side of that. We're the guys taking the pictures, doing the interviews, and it's a whole different role, but it's just, I love this sport. Like you said, it's interesting because I do get some people that I guess as you're kind of back up, Terry McCarl and I have been friends for years, and one of the things we agree on is Terry and I have talked for years, and he said, people always say we need more Jack Hewitts, but, I say something on the microphone or I go and get in a fight with somebody and they want to throw me out. And I kind of the same thing with the journalism side of it. Most of the media centers in the country are named after Chris Economaki, who didn't even have a filter, But then I write something about, maybe we should look at harder tires, and they say, oh, Ald's on one of his rants again, So it's, I don't know, it's a fun sport. I've always said, the guys that we deal with, I've always felt that you should always be a little bit nervous to put a microphone in front of a sprint car racer. And I love guys who are outspoken. I love guys with personalities, and that's what we do. I mean, is find what that personality is so we can profile those guys and talk about their careers.
Owning your own business, any size of business, is challenging. It wears you down. It's been a long time since you launched the magazine all those years ago. Were there times where you thought, man, it'd be easier to just go get a job?
Yeah, well, that's racing, isn't it? I mean, everybody in racing works 80 hours a week so they don't have to get a job, So, yeah, it's a lot of late nights and everything else, but it's great when you're passionate about something, when you can find something that you love as much as racing, especially sprint cars, midgets. Like Pat said, a lot of the hours you're putting in isn't work. Some of it is, so I disagree with Pat there, but a lot of it isn't work. It's a passion, and especially when you can feel like you're moving something forward. Like you said, there's times you bring forward issues you don't necessarily want to bring forward. And to me, the yardstick's always been, if we discuss this, will it make things better? If we discuss this, is it just digging dirt? No, we'll stay away from it. If we discuss something, traction control or something that maybe we need to look at and say, is this hurting the sport? Some of the other things were maybe cost or some safety issues. maybe it's unpleasant to discuss it, but we need to have this discussion to help move it forward. That's always been kind of the yardstick. So.
You brought a lot of family here. Talk about that.
Oh yeah, I got it. First off, obviously, got to thank my wife Chelsea. Been since I met Chelsea when I was 20 years old, and back in my trying to be a rock star days. That didn't work out because you're not Bon Jovi, and this isn't the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But it worked.
And we ain't in Cleveland, baby.
No, we're not. But what did work out, like all true artists and musicians, you start for one reason, to meet girls. So that worked really well. And I met my wife Chelsea when I was 20 years old. We've been together ever since. Obviously, we've got two fantastic kids who I'm so proud of with us today. Kayla's our little 10-year-old, and Shauna, I'm so proud that she's with us with her husband all the way from Germany for this induction, which is fantastic. And a lot of people in this room know Shauna because she worked the booths for us. Shauna and I did a lot of great hours on the road. A lot of long trips to different races, out here to Knoxville, a lot of different places. I mean, we had a trip to the Chili Bowl that Dave and Brenda Darland really took because they were about a half hour behind us. And we get down into Missouri, and I'm driving this rental car, and I hear this sound. It's like this tone. And I said, well, I don't know this car. Maybe I have a tire going down. Maybe there's something wrong with the car. So I said to Shauna, well, let's just pull off the next exit, make sure everything's okay, And so we pull off, and I shut down the car in this gas station, and I realized the tone's still going on. I get out of the car, and this guy says, you better not pump any gas. Tornado just touched down right down the street. And so okay. And he said, well, we have the cinder block building in the back if you want to ride it out with us. And I said, hell no, I got a car. I can leave. So we got back on the highway, and we drove the rest of the way to the Chili Bowl. I said, okay, you've got the right side, and I've got the left side. Do you know what a funnel cloud looks like? So, and like I said, Dave and Brenda Darland were about a half hour behind us, so we shared the same story when we got there. But we've done a lot of miles on the road, and it's just been a lot of fun time that I was able to have with Shauna, and to have such a great family backing you and supporting you, and it's just, I can't thank all you guys enough.
I think Kayla probably keeps mom and dad on their toes, doesn't she?
Oh, she's a firecracker, and she loves racing, so yeah, absolutely.
So, what's going to be, go-kart or mini sprint?
Oh, hell no. No, she's not. I've been at this a long time. I'm not that stupid. No.
Well, this is a great day. It's just great to be up here with you, and well-deserved, well-earned. I mean, I know this sounds like a homer. I'm sorry, but if you could see how hard this guy works, day and night, weekend, 24/7, almost 365. I get emails from him that are dated, 4:15 in the morning. So this guy, whatever accolades we can give him, this guy has earned it. So congratulations. Doug Auld.
Our next inductee is Dave Darland. Before I mention a single one of Dave Darland's impressive list of accomplishments, I want to spend just a bit of time providing some important context that underscores just why he isn't one of the most decorated drivers in USAC history, but truly one of the most beloved by peers, fans, promoters, and officials. It begins with his father, Bob Darland. Bob was not a physically imposing man. In the pits before or after the race, he was not demonstrative in any way, regardless if they came on top or if things did not go as planned. No, if you really knew Bob Darland, he communicated with his eyes. When happy, they would tinkle just a bit, and you can see a crease in the corner. If he was unhappy, they would get round, and they would appear like white lumps of burning coal. And I'm sure as a youth, Dave saw all of that and a bit more. Therefore, when Bob and Dave Darland showed up at the Kokomo Quarter Midget Club, they struck no fear in anyone. Dave was all arms and legs. He was what we called lanky, even as a 4-year-old. Then Bob hung a nickname on him. He called him Tiger Dave. And it turns out his young charge was all of that and more. He won over 150 quarter midget events, and while that is certainly impressive, there was much more to this story. Bob instilled in Dave the right way to race and the right way to behave. score of victory for a parent, because it was a lesson that stuck. Oh, sure, in a sprint car career that is now over 3 decades long, there have been dust-ups and disagreements, but they've been very few in number. I have a vivid memory of a night in Terre Haute. It was around 1995 or so, and Dave's crew and his biggest supporter, his wife Brenda, are absolutely hopping mad. They are certain that he has been scored improperly and should have been credited with one more spot in the final order. It is an angry beehive when I got behind that trailer. Dave's sitting there taking off his racing boots, and he looks up and calmly says, "It all works out." Conversation over. From that early success in quarter minutes, David got his first chance in a sprint car after his dad purchased an ex-Van Gurley senior car from Bob Stanley. He was on his way. He began racing at Kokomo, Warsaw, and Bunker Hill, and appropriately enough, he would score his first sprint car win at Kokomo. But it was no ordinary win. He beat Bob Kinzer on Father's Day. Before he ever graced victory lane with USAC, he became an Indiana bull ring legend. In the end, he won track championships at Lincoln Park in 1991 and 1992, and he won or shared the track title at Kokomo in 1987, 1991, 1993, and 1994. And until Bob's passing, no matter how big a star he was, he still had time to race with his father. His first USAC win came at the Holman Classic at Terre Haute in May 1993. He got a watch as a prize, and for years he continued to wear it. It was a huge first win in what is widely considered as USAC's iconic dirt race. He was just warming up. Going forward, Dave would win the 1999 USAC Sprint Car title and has been in the top 3 in season points a staggering 9 times. Even more remarkable, he has not been outside of the top 3 in each of the last 5 seasons. Consider this. His highest single season win totals with USAC came not in the 1990s when he was young and breathing fire every day, but in the years 2012, 2013, and 2014. To date, Darland has won a USAC sanctioned event for 25 consecutive seasons. And if you think, that's right. Now, if you think he's near the end, think again, because this man, I'm telling you, beat Ponce de Leon to the Fountain of Youth. He won last Sunday night at Kokomo over a stellar field. To sum it up in a great line, Indiana sprint car driver Kyle Cummins recently said to me, "The checkered flag doesn't know your age. After all, look at Dave Darland." There are so many notable accomplishments, and all of them made this day inevitable. By virtue of the championship in the Sprint, Midget, and Silver Crown Series, he became just the 3rd member of USAC's Triple Crown Club. His honors for these feats are legendary. He won the sprint car title with the Hoffman Dynamics team. His sprint car title came with Hall of Famer Galen Fox. And 2 midget crowns came with owner Steve Lewis and with Bob East turning the wrenches. He was the 1998, 2001, and 2007 USAC Indiana Sprint Week champion. In August 2014, appropriately at Kokomo, Darland nailed down his 53rd USAC win. With that victory, he became the all-time leader in that category, toppling a record that had stood for 33 years. And how appropriate was it that the man who had held it, Tom Bigelow, was also a man who was adored also by the fans. It had been his mark. One more thing is worthy of mention. In spite of the perception of some, please note this. Dave Darland has won at Salem, Winchester, Anderson, Toledo, and Cedar Rapids. No, he just wasn't a really good dirt racer. In addition, while the focus here is on sprint car racing, he has won some of the biggest midget races in the country, including the Belleville Midget Nationals and the Turkey Night Grand Prix. Going into tonight's action here in Knoxville, Dave Darland has made 672 USAC starts and notched 59 wins. He now sits fourth in combined USAC national wins behind A.J. Foyt, Rich Fogler, and Mel Kenyon. I'd say that's an exclusive club. Yet there is more. Over the years, I have asked many young drivers whom they have patterned their career on. And for years, the most common answer is Dave Darland. Because the lesson is just not about racing. It's about watching how Dave conducts himself outside of the car. Darland is already a member of the Hoosier Auto Racing Fan Club Hall of Fame, but in so many ways, so many of his bushel basket awards speaks to the other dimension of the man we just described above, and that's character and attitude. Two of his major USAC awards reflect this. In 2003, he was the recipient of the Jimmy Carruthers Award for Spirit and Determination. In 2013, he was honored with the Jason Leffler Award for his contribution to the sport. And in addition, he was named as the winner of the Pat O'Connor Award by the Hoosier Auto Racing fans. Significantly, this is not an annual honor, but is reserved for those who are truly special. This award goes to the person who most exemplifies Pat O'Connor, who is perhaps the most beloved driver of his time. The award is fitting because Dave Darland has been, in the eyes of many, the modern-day Pat O'Connor. There are so many other like awards from various fan clubs, and time doesn't permit counting them all. But let's also add he was the 2015 Tom Schmay Award winner for outstanding contributions to the sport of sprint car racing. Even with everything I have said to this point, my words do not adequately convey to you just what this man means to Hoosier State racing and the sport as a whole. And now you're going to hear something for the second time, and I hope that means it rings true for you. For so long, I enjoyed one of the most privileged views of this man's work. I think about sweltering nights at Ken Evans's Kokomo Speedway, where so many great drivers were on hand. Gary Fisher, a young Derek Davidson, Shane Cottle hitting his stride, and Mike Mann, who when he was on his game was as fast as anyone, and just great guys and competitors like Tony Jarrett and Tony Plew and Vince Osmond. And so often, other stars of USAC or from elsewhere would drop in. However, there were three men, more than any other, period, who defined this sport. Dave Darland, Tony Elliott, and Kevin Thomas defined a generation. In a time when traditional sprint car racing was seemingly hanging by a thread, this trio carried the flag when it was needed most. Now just look. The discipline has enjoyed a resurgence, and we can mark that by the return of USAC to Knoxville this weekend. There is no question about it. Those three men participated in a golden age of sprint car racing. What I have tried to express in a larger sense is this. If you accumulate the most points or the most wins, you may earn a title. Yet a champion, a true champion, is so much more than this. Legendary midget owner Ralph Potter was once asked to offer some observations about the number of greats who had raced for him. After sharing the list and making comments along the way, he added this addendum. Dave Darland, he said with a pause, is a full-grown man. It speaks volumes. He once crashed at Raceway Park. He stood there in the front straightaway, looked straight ahead, and told the fans, that was entirely my fault, and I owe some people an apology. It brought the house down. This past December, during a Sprint Car 101 organized by Tom Schmay, He told the crowd that his records were meant to be broken. And when asked who might do it, he never missed a beat. And he said it was going to be Brian Clausen. This last Sunday, he was the winner of the Brian Clausen double. Folks, this isn't a racing tale. This is a great American story. Dave Darland came from humble roots, and he never forgot from whence he came, nor lost his humility. He wasn't a rich kid with a rich dad. He could be characterized as shy and maybe even a bit unsophisticated when he first hit the scene. But that all changed. He not only became a full-grown man, he grew as a man. And as his popularity soared, he simultaneously became one of the greatest spokespersons sprint car racing has ever seen. The racing records he has amassed will be there forever, but beyond the numbers lies the man. Dave Darland is a champion, a true champion, and his greatest impact in this sport is not measured in wins, but on the impact he's had on other people's lives. By simply taking a moment with fans, being accessible, and breaking down any barriers between the public and himself, he has always seemed to be just one of us. So it is with great pleasure that I present to you one of the greatest drivers in every way that we have ever seen. Yes, indeed, he has truly, truly been the people's chance. Ladies and gentlemen, David Lee Darland, National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. Hello, David.
How are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I couldn't have said it better myself.
That's Dave Darland. I feel sorry for you, Dave, because you're sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, old Dave is just back there thinking how he can get his race car around this racetrack tonight.
Yeah, we got a little work to do, and I got, I was thinking, I got a lot to say up here. As soon as you get done talking, I got about that much more to say again. So we need to hurry up, and it's a good thing, it's actually a good thing Tony wasn't here, or we would have missed hot laps, I think. So, because he had a lot to say too, and but me and Terry, a couple other guys probably in here has got to go work tonight, so we got to get this wrapped up. And but it's it's just a special moment for me. Very honored and privileged to to be standing here talking to you right now about what we're talking about. And since I got the call from Bob Baker a couple months ago, and a couple weeks later the announcement that this was all going down, it's been just, my phone's been ringing and getting emails and phone calls and pats on the back from guys, some high end guys like Roger Johnson there, and Steve Lewis has called, and the story about Ralph Potter, seeing Tracy Potter last weekend, and just been getting some high recognition and some cool accomplishments from my accomplishment from some high class people. So very honored to be here, and very humbling experience.
We talked about it here. Dave brought it up. Dave and I did not compare notes, so but he recognized Kevin, and obviously recognizing Tony. But you and Kevin and Tony, it was amazing to watch. What was it like as a competitor?
Oh, it was, the nights that I won was great. The nights that Kevin won, it was sucked. But it was just a lot of fun, as you mentioned too. There was another 10 guys there too that were capable of winning or running well on every night. But me and Kevin and Tony, we were all there for the same reason. All had great equipment, and had the drive and desire to try to win every chance we got. Every night, whether it was Kokomo or Warsaw where we started, or Gas City or Eldora. We just loved to race sprint cars, and we was just there to win and have some fun too. And that was the fun part about back in them days, you know, we would, and Bob Kinzer too, he taught me a lot. I still use some of my Bob Kinzer moves on occasion. Some people don't like it very well.
Is that when your car gets wide?
It gets wide. Yes, it gets wide. So. But, you know, those were some fun days, you know, racing with those guys. And then, you know, as Kent Evans said a while ago, you know, at Kokomo Speedway with Gary and them, we knew Kent would have a cooler full of little kings over there. We would all gather at his place, and you know, we just a lot of, you know, just get-togethers, you know, for some beers or some just, you know, reminisce the race, you know, just, you know. So Kevin and I and Tony, we all, you know, enjoyed racing and just enjoyed each other's friendship.
So like racing for your dad all those years?
Oh yeah, we had a lot of fun. You know, Dad was, yeah, certainly got to thank my mom and Dad for, you know, getting me started. And you know, my dad knew I wanted to be a race car driver before I did. he bought me a race car when I was 4 years old. So I've been racing ever since. So my dad was, you know, a super guy. You know, we did a lot together as a kid. When I was a kid, you know, we went fishing and racing and hunting and things a lot. So, you know, we spent a lot of time together. And you know, unfortunately, he died at a fairly young age, at 69. So, but we had a lot of fun racing together, and we was able to win a lot of races, had a lot of success. And so I just like to thank my mom and dad and my family. You know, I'm just up here saying the same thing that you and Dave were talking about. You know, I got to thank my wife too. You know, my beautiful wife Brenda back there. She's been my biggest supporter for all of my career. You know, whether well, on good nights she was my supporter. On bad nights she was my critic. She don't mind telling me when I suck too, and I don't blame her. That happens. You know, when you race 100 nights a year for 35 years, it's going to happen some.
Yeah, one day you have a bad night once in a while.
You got to have some. But you know, just my family too. You know, Brenda, my wife, and my kids. Destiny sitting there, and Trenton and Tristan sitting over there. They have been big supporters of mine and sacrifice a lot for me to live my dream and race, you know, 100 times a year or so. And but they've, you know, racing's been great for me and my family too. We've got to see, you know, the world. Got to do a lot of traveling back, you know, a few years back when the kids were little. Got to take them to a lot of theme parks, you know, Walt Disney World and, you know, Knott's Berry Farm out in California. So they got to see a lot of things that they wouldn't have been able to see if it wasn't for racing. So, you know, racing's been very good to me.
Now, was it J.R. Todd that laid the People's Champ moniker on you?
Yeah, him and the Frolic group out there. So, yeah, they.
But did you have the sense of that you had such an enormous fan base?
Oh, you know, I don't know. Do I?
Yes.
Well, good. Well, yeah, we sell a lot of T-shirts, so it's been great. You know, just you know, like you mentioned, just, you know, sticking around after the races, bullshitting with people that want to come by and say hi, and, you know, so I like you know, hanging out after races and, you know, talking to people and you know, answering their questions or just talking to them, you know, seeing what they got to say.
This guy has not changed in the entire time I've known him, and thank God for that, right? I mean, that's the great part of it. Dave, it's a signature moment. Congratulations, and you've certainly earned it. You got a little list there, buddy?
I do.
All righty.
First of all, I'd like to say, you know, in the Brian Clausen, you know, memory that I finally parked it here in the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum. So here's to you, Brian. But there's just a bunch of people I got to thank, and I know we might miss hot laps after all. So, but you know, I'd just like to thank God, you know, for the ability and the talent and the strength to do what I do, and you know, to place me on earth to drive sprint cars. You know, I'd like to thank God for the ability. My mom and dad, as I said, my wife and kids. You know, thanks for all their support. Lefty Landgrave was a big supporter of mine back when I first started racing. Thomas Schmay, thank you for your contribution to the sport, and it was a privilege and an honor of mine to receive that recipient of that award back in 15. And Thomas was there to present me the award at the Kokomo Speedway one night, so that was a special moment for me. Steve Stroud was, you know, the same as Thomas Schmay. He was just a great supporter of sprint car racing, and had the museum out in Phoenix, and he was a big supporter of Dave Darland Racing, and we miss him too. He passed away a couple of years ago, and he was a great contributor to sprint car racing, and helped a lot of people, and we appreciated his support. And I'd like to thank Bob Baker and the Knoxville Hall of Fame, and everybody involved to make this happen. As you said, they're all volunteers, and sprint car racing survives, and you guys help sprint car racing, and we do appreciate everybody here at Knoxville Hall of Fame for all they do. I'd like to thank USAC for promoting or sanctioning non-wing sprint car racing. If I had to wing sprint car race every night like Terry does, I have to be an announcer or something. I'm not very good at the wing racing. But Dick Jordan, thank you, Dick, for everything you do for Dave Darland Racing and USAC and racing in general. So thank you, DJ. And some of my major car owners, as you mentioned, Galen Fox and Steve Lewis, Gus Hoffman. They were back. They all hired me, or some of them hired me back when I was hadn't really proved myself yet, especially on the USAC or the national level. I'd won a lot of local events and championships and things, but for them guys to hire me to go on the road and as you mentioned, win at Salem and Winchester and places like that, was out in California at Oval Nationals and Western World. I mean, I've won some big events, and I wouldn't have been able to accomplish those without some great car owners. So I'd like to thank all the guys that have given me opportunities, and nowadays driving for Steve and Carla Phillips. As you mentioned, we've had a great successful 13, 14, and 15. I think we won 17 USAC national events in them 3 years, and that was my biggest stretch of 3 years. And as you mentioned, I wasn't no kid. I was 46 and 47 years old at that time. So thank you guys for the opportunity, and Frank, thanks for your help and bringing us chocolates every night. And Jeff Walker, Jeff Walker was a big car owner, supporter of mine, and I won a lot of races for him, and he gave me some great opportunities, and we had a lot of fun together, traveling up and down the road. And all the fans, just like to thank all the fans for supporting this event and every race you go to. We have a lot of fans that come see us every night, whether it's on the road or locally. So just like to thank all my Double D fans out there. And just all the racetracks for supporting the Knoxville Speedway right tonight. So thanks for having us, and hopefully everybody enjoys the race tonight. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, David.
I'm going to tell real quick, because I know hot laps are right around the corner. I'm going to tell my favorite Dave Darland story. It's my favorite because it perfectly captures his personality and his wit. This is probably almost 20 years ago. He's driving the Hoffman sprint car, so it's probably the late 90s, I would guess, and it was a USAC race at Lincoln Park Speedway, and somehow he crashed on the backstretch, went kind of out of the park, way out in the weeds where it's dark, and he was so mad that first thing he did when the car stopped, he took the steering wheel off and gave it a fling. He was just not very, very happy at all. And so he's sitting there in the car, and he's starting to crawl out, and people are starting to get there, running out to him. He was going fast because it took him a while to get out where you were, buddy. And so he gets out there, and one of the first guys out there was Richard Hoffman. And he kind of starts looking at the car, and he says, hey, Dave, man, this thing's really, I don't think it's hurt all that bad. I think we could push. And Dave said, okay, cool, help me find the steering wheel, and we'll try it. So. Well, our final inductee today is originally from Des Moines, now living in Altoona, Iowa, Mr. Terry McCarl. There's a popular Frank Sinatra song that you hear played a lot, and I think people like it because of the statement it makes, my way. Well, that song and that theme perfectly describes Terry McCarl. He was Rookie of the Year here at Knoxville in 1985, and in the 32 seasons since then, he has enjoyed a tremendous racing career. Terry's statistics are impressive. 300 sprint car wins at 65 tracks in 21 states and Australia. wins with 18 different sanctioning bodies, 7 Knoxville Raceway Track Championships, and 57 wins here. He is a 4-time winner of the 360 Nationals. He has won 8 track titles at Huset Speedway and has 98 410 wins there. Terry has risen to become one of the most successful racers of his generation, and he did it, like everything else, on his agenda. He chose his own path and he chose his own way. That is what is so impressive to me about his career. He was able to dictate the terms, and today that is very, very rare in our sport. For more than 20 years now, Terry has also been involved as a race promoter. He has brought a fresh perspective and a fresh energy to that role, and it's been fun to watch. Terry and Lori's events are fun because they make it so. A TMAC promotion reflects a lot of Terry's personality: high energy, creative, interesting. Terry is one of the most fan-friendly racers I've ever known, especially with kids, but then again, maybe that's because really he's still just a kid himself. He is people-oriented, and that comes from the heart. It's fun to watch him in the pit area when the racing has finished, interacting with people, staying until everybody has been taken care of. I'm not an apologist. I think our actions speak for themselves. Over the years, I've seen where Terry was criticized at times. Sometimes he deserved it, sometimes he didn't. But I tend to look at him in a little different way because I think sometimes I see dimensions to him that other people haven't taken the time to see. Some years ago, I was writing a profile on Terry for Open Wheel magazine, and I called Ralph Capitani to get his thoughts on Terry. The first thing Cappy said was, Lee Township. That's the area in Des Moines where Terry was raised. Cappy explained to me that it's not so much a place, but a state of mind. Lee Township against the world. The people there are tough, they're independent, they have an attitude, a chip on their shoulder, and they're stubborn. Well, I don't know if everybody in Lee Township is like that, but I know one who is. The thing that drives Terry is his passion. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he lives with his emotions right there at the surface. Sometimes things burst out that maybe would be better if they didn't. I have seen him quick to anger, I've seen him quick to words, but I've also seen him be quick to apologize when he feels that he's been wrong. We've talked a lot today about passion for the sport and love for sprint car racing. Terry McCarl absolutely loves our sport. He loved it from the beginning when he sat out on those old wooden boards out there and watched his dad Leonard race. He loved it when he studied the statistics and history of the sport. He loved it when he started racing, and he loved it even during those times when a race car beat him up pretty badly. That's the love, that's the passion that brought him here today. There was never any doubt in my mind that Terry would get here. First of all, he has the statistics. He's got the numbers, and nobody could argue otherwise. But it's more than just numbers. It's impact. Over the past 20 years, few people have had the impact on the sport here in the Midwest like Terry. This is a great moment for Terry. It's a great moment for his family, and maybe it's even a great moment for Lee Township. Lee Township versus the world. Well, sometimes Lee Township wins. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a racer who made a difference, Terry McCarl. This is one where you don't want to lose control of the microphone, so bear with me. So what a great day, what a great moment.
I wish you could have got Dave to tear up a little bit because I'm kind of a softie. So, you guys, most of you know me. I'm not a talker like Dave, so it's going to be tough for me.
Hey, hot laps are right around the corner. Darland said so.
I don't care. This means more to me than racing tonight, or just something that wasn't something I ever thought I could get to. But like you guys have said so much that I wanted to say, what Pat said and what Davis said. But when you get that call, it's pretty special.
You know, a lot of people, I was serious about that. A lot of people don't understand this guy he is a fan of the sport in terms of he studies the statistics, he knows the history, he's interested in the history. That's been a big part of you.
Yeah, I don't know why. When I was a little boy, I just couldn't wait to get that Speed Sport on Thursday, and I read it from cover to cover, Chris Economacki's column every week, and I'd read all the sprint car stuff and all the stock car stuff, and I'd look at, back then, the only way you knew about racing, there was no internet, was seeing the payoffs and the races coming up, and I used to think about payoffs and redo payoffs when I was about 7 or 8 years old, so I thought about the promotional end of it, and, I always had a really good memory, and I'd sit there and listen to my dad and all his friends talk, and, I remembered everything pretty well.
You've had a spectacular career. Are there things that stand out as especially notable for you in your heart, things that really meant a lot?
Well, I don't know. I've been here at Knoxville, since the Wooden Grandstand, since I think I was 4 years old, and I've seen a lot of things happen, a lot of people die, and a lot of heartbreak and a lot of excitement, and I've stood in victory lane and seen Jan Opperman win the Nationals, and I've sat there as a little boy and turned around with me and my brother and listened to, I'll never forget the sound of John Singer's engine in that 4J car when Eddie Levitt went to turn one. Even as a kid, I was like, what is in that hood of that thing? That was amazing. So I've experienced a lot of really cool things, I think, that, these kids nowadays won't. But, it's something, again, I'm really into history, always have been. And to be able to have a career like I have, it's pretty, I never really thought I was that good a driver. So to be able to win 300 features is pretty amazing.
You're still very active, very, very busy. Talk about your program right now.
Well, it's, I've been at the top, and I've redone my own team, and I'm going to get misty. I wish you'd have got Darland to be a little bit misty.
We can bring him back up here, maybe.
He's a lot tougher than me. My favorite Dave Darland story is I ran East Bay at the Nalwing show one year, and I won the heat race, and I was so excited because I just think Nalwing racing is so awesome, and those guys are so brave. I got off, and we had to weigh, and I pulled up on the scales, and I got out, and I looked around, and Dave Darland's getting out of his car behind me. He ran second. I'm like, hey, I beat Dave Darland. He goes, don't make a habit of it.
Perfect. He is pretty quick, So what's left for you to win besides, I know the Knoxville Nationals, we talk about it every year we come out here, that is just still on your list.
Well, it's on everyone's list of race wings cars, and Roger Rager ran second, and one year in 1975, and actually a car that my dad had built, and he came up to me a few years ago when I was on the pole and talked to me, and got a little misty, really, and Roger was a big idol of mine, and really tough guy, too, and he's like, man, I hope you win it, it means the world, and it does, and I should have won that year, and I didn't, and, I could talk about regrets or something, I really don't have them, I was fast enough to win, I've led the Knoxville Nationals, that's pretty big, and, if I never win it, it's not the end of, end of my world, but, I've just had a great career, and I got a great family, and to be able to do it as long as I have is pretty amazing.
You got involved, as we talked about, as a promoter. Was that an education to see things from that perspective?
Well, it's always an education to stand in someone else's shoes, but yeah, you definitely see things a lot different. Everybody, as a racer, it's not your concern about the crowd really, and it's not your concern about the going, behind the scenes type of things. But in today's world, especially with social media, it's so easy to criticize what's going on promotion-wise, and it's really, really tough. Lori and I, we were doing 5 or 6 races a year a couple years ago, but just to do one race and to try to make it special and to make it big is so much work. On she takes care of the fan side, and I think that's probably harder than what I do, and then I take care of the racing side. But I have a great partner in her, and I can't look at her; I will definitely get misty. But
she's waving at you.
No,
she wants you to look. Yes, she is. She does. She does. See, she was waving.
The worst thing that happened to me, I was leading the Knoxville Nationals. I'm going down the back straightaway, and I just remember going down the back straightaway thinking, I'm leading the Knoxville Nationals. I mean, as a boy growing up and watching these, I'm like, this is so amazing. And they had a yellow flag, and I think it was probably you. I remember that's Tony Baco, and I think up on the screen they had the live TV going on. I'm going down the back straightaway, I look up, and they're interviewing Lori, and I could see her face. I'm like, oh man, I can't look at her. I got to stay focused.
Well, you are a local guy in the very definition. Just up the road to Des Moines, you came down here as a little big kid. I know it means all that much more when you run well here, but here, this Hall of Fame and being in Knoxville, I know that matters.
Oh, it matters more than I ever thought. I got the call. It was pretty awesome, but as time went on, as Dave said, with all the congratulations and just thinking about it, really, realizing what's happening, it actually means way more to me now and today than it did then, and I think it will forever. So I just look around at Rayleigh Goodwin, and these guys were my heroes when I was a kid, and being associated with those guys, like I said, I never thought I was that great a driver, but to be put with those guys is pretty amazing.
Your son began racing, when they got old enough and started that deal. Was that a different perspective?
I don't know how Lori does it. I have two sons that race, and I hurt my arm, and I was finally got to watch. Austin had been racing for a couple years, but I usually was racing against him or at the same place, and could never really see him race. And then I was standing in the corner one time, so I broke my arm, and I was so nervous. And Lori's like, I just realized something. You haven't really watched Austin race before, have you? And I said, no. She's like, you need to calm down. So now Carson's racing, and tonight was going to be all three of us racing against each other, but Carson has hurt his engine, unfortunately. But I don't know how she does it. I don't know how any of the women out there do it. Behind every good man's a good woman, and that's it. When it comes to racing, I don't think it's more prevalent than it is. I don't know how she puts up with it, with broken legs and broken bones and the whining. And my dad told me, I told him we were leaving Syracuse once a long time ago, and Randy Smith was driving for him, and I said, I want to be a race car driver. He said, man, that's great. He goes, but the problem with that is you're a competitive person, and every night there's 39 losers and one winner. And he said, it's tough to do that. It's tough to not, if you win 10% of the races you're in a year, you had a great year. So as a competitive person, it's very difficult. So that's, these women, I don't know how they put up with it, and families in general, how they, support you on those bad nights when you're wanting to kick the crap out of somebody or do something or punch the wall. But they, I met Lori when she was 12 and I was 14. So I told her two things. I said, someday I'm going to marry you, and I'm going to be a race car driver. She didn't know what a race car driver was. She had nothing, she'd never been around racing. But both things came true. She should have ran when she had a chance, I think.
The importance of setting goals early, right there. You mentioned your dad, Leonard. He was a staple here, too, and in the sport, and this is a great day for him, too.
Yeah, I wish he could be here. He just died last March, and I think you would think that's a pretty big deal. But I've said it many times. There's lots of things about him that I wanted to emulate, breaking both my legs and my back. That wasn't what I should have been a chiropractor or a physical therapist, because I used to have to. They didn't have that stuff back then when he break both of his legs and his eyeballs popped out of their sockets one time. And but he had me. I'd lay there he'd lay on the ground every night, and I'd have to. I was probably 10 years old. I'd have to bend his leg a little bit further, and put him through pain just because his legs wouldn't bend. So there was no physical therapy, like I said. So I'm surprised I didn't do that. But I seen him, go through a lot of tough times, and he built his own cars and motors and did it out back, and got hurt quite often, and still kept coming back. Maybe that's what's kept me from quitting. But he definitely instilled the love of racing in me, and then I have it in my sons. And I don't know if that's good or bad.
You got a big crowd here. Tell us about who's here with you.
Well, it's pretty amazing. I've been surprised by a bunch of people coming in, but mainly I got to thank Darland. He's out here, and this crazy guy had a really good race car here at Knoxville, and unfortunately he lost his son. And I don't think anyone thought he was going to race that year in 1985. And my dad was good friends with him. My dad built his cars, and Earl built his own engines, and Chris, his son, did all the work on them and stuff. And I just got the wild hair. I'd race go-karts one year. My dad didn't want us to race, so he wouldn't help us, and I bought a go-kart myself. And then Darryl didn't have a driver, I heard. I think that people thought he was going to quit, maybe because of Chris. And I was young. I was only like 19. And actually, Lori was there that night. We called him. I was scared to death to give him a call and asked him to drive his race car. I'd never driven a sprint. I'd never started a sprint car, let alone driven one. And he was crazy enough to let me do it. I don't know what he was thinking, but it worked out pretty good for him and me. And like I said, let's imagine, right now, just some crazy kid getting that good of a ride with no money, nothing like that. Just he liked me for some reason. Without him, I wouldn't be here. So, and my family, my whole family, Country Builders have been with me since I don't know how many years. They've been 20-some years, and I got so many people here from South Dakota. I think most of my crew chiefs I've ever had are here, and got to thank them for all their hard work. I'm sure I'm the easiest guy to work for, and most of them never got paid very much, but we got a lot of great stories and had a lot of fun, that's for sure.
Anybody else you want to talk about? Anybody else? Anything else you want to say?
I'll just, like Dave and everybody said, and Pat, the family behind this thing. This is such a family thing. All of us are one big family, really, whether we're non-wing or wing, and I think we all love each other in a sense, and that's what I love about the Nationals and these big events. When you get together, you got a friend everywhere. So it's, I look back on a lot of, being hurt or those type of things. But I've had a pretty good life. My dad had a pretty good life and was a racer his whole life, really, and it's not a bad way to go, really.
I think the Hall of Fame is one of those things where honestly, it takes a while for it to sink in, to really understand. And I think when you see your plaque over there, but really in the coming years, when you're over there, you got some friends with you, and you can take them and show your plaque, I think that's when it really sinks in. I mean, do you think that's how it's going to be for you?
Yeah, every day it does. It kind of at first makes you feel old a little bit, but
not me.
But no, it's like you said, I'm kind of a historian, and I love the Hall of Fame. It's such a great organization. Everyone is here. Roger on down, and Don Lamberti and everybody, the Rasmussens that have made that thing possible, and all the hard work from Tom and Bob. And I noticed that we've had a suite for years and years, and I watch these guys work, and I can't wait to do all I can do in the future to help them make it more successful, and hopefully get that new Brian Clausen Tower built. And it's just and now that I'm in, even before I was in it meant a lot to me. So, but it's definitely a special place for all of us.
I've said this often. The Hall of Fame is the most validating thing for anybody's career, because when there's this discussion about who was better this, who had this, who was great, who wasn't, the Hall of Fame is like a threshold, and you're there, man. You're there.
Well, I always think about the arguments, was Steve Kinzer better than A.J. Foyt, or all you can do is be the best at your time, and things change. So, A.J. Foyt was the best at his time. Dave Darland's been the best at his time, and we were pretty good around here during our time, and that's really all you can do.
You're still in your time, dude.
I hope so. We'll see tonight.
Well, it's been a privilege to stand up here with you. It's been a privilege to have you as a friend all those years.
Thanks. I just want to thank the Hall of Fame, everybody voted for us, and all you guys for coming out today. And let's go. I am truly, truly a huge fan of non-wing racing. That's why Lori and I and Bill McCarl, my partner, promoted that thing and over at Oski, and I think that was some of the best races. I don't care what the one night that Hockett won was probably the single best sprint car event in the history of sprint car racing. I think from top to bottom, every single race was amazing. And at the checkered, Hockett had lost it the year before, I think, and some poor lap car was cruising right through the middle, and Dave showed him the nose there on the last lap, and Hockett wasn't going to lose that thing again, and they come across the checker flag passing a lap car, and it was a pretty amazing finish for everybody involved. But I'm a huge fan of non-wing racing, and I can't wait to see it tonight.
I'm going to just go ahead and tell you that I hope that when your day comes, you don't want to do the driving thing anymore. The sport needs guys like you from a promoter standpoint, from an organizer standpoint. Keep this deal going, and I hope that's going to be your next step.
Well, I hope I can, but it's just something that Lori and I had the passion. Her dad was the type of guy that did all kinds of different businesses, had stands at the fair, and then I was always involved in promotion when I was a kid at the skating rink. So she has a promoter's mind, so do I, and I just love it. When that checker flag falls in the night and you've had a good crowd, and more importantly, everybody's safe, it's a great feeling.
Well, we hope that we're going to see a lot of that. Terry McCarl, ladies and gentlemen.
First of all, we'd like to thank Dave Argerbright and Pat Sullivan for being great MCs for us again this year. We failed to mention that Donna Wilson is with us to represent her father, who's in the Hall of Fame, Chet Wilson. So Donna, thank you for coming, being with us. Also, everybody from the United States Auto Club is with us, as well as the Hoosier Auto Racing Fan Club is with us. Thank you guys for coming. If you're getting ready to leave, don't forget to pick up the free glasses that are on your table. That's our gift to each of you for joining us this afternoon. We'd like to invite anybody who has a moment to join us over at the staging building for a brief dedication. We'll do it immediately after this. And then the Hall of Fame families and Hall of Fame new inductees, we'd like to take your picture with your new plaque over at the Hall of Fame immediately after the dedication. Thank you all for coming today, and we'll see you at the races tonight. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, Kirk Elliott. It's official. Everybody is in, and I don't think people – if you sit there and watch this whole thing, you can see it on the face of Dave Darland, Terry McCarl, all of the inductees, how special it is to get into this Hall of Fame. When it comes into racing terms, Kirk, and there's some great Hall of Fames around the country, but there's not one that anybody as a sprint car driver would want to be in more than this one right here.
Oh, this is the cream of the crop here.
Granddaddy
this
of them all.
Great motorsports Hall of Fames in the entire country. There's no doubt about it. And when you validate that with the museum just outside of Turn 2 here at the famed Knoxville Raceway, and a lot of the additions. They're going to dedicate the staging building here in just a little while, and also the new Brian Clausen Suite tower that's going to be going up soon.
Yep.
It keeps expanding, getting better every year. And Tom Schmay was the one guy I remember when they started talking about this Hall of Fame a long time ago.
How about
I'm
that?
I'm here to testify this right now. Tom, if you're listening, this thing would not exist without you, bud.
No doubt.
We miss you here, and would like to see you soon.
A lot of people are thinking about you here today, for sure. So we hope to see you when you get back here the next time. All right, Kirk, any final thoughts before we wrap up here today?
Just a wonderful ceremony, and all of the candidates that were inducted here today, all the inductees, very worthy inductees that were enshrined in the Hall of Fame today, and it's just a wonderful afternoon. Big history buff like I am, you know that. Just eat this kind of stuff up, man. It was just a great day.
Really was. And you know what? I hope that they ask us to come back and do it again next year.
I look forward to it.
Yep. All right, Kirk, thanks so much. Appreciate everybody that tuned in. Gosh, just a huge audience here today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. And do yourself a favor. Go to the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum. If you haven't been to it, it's a destination, folks. It's got to be on your bucket list. It's something that you've got to do. You've got to go to the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum, and we hope that that you'll enjoy it and go this year, because again they've got the Sammy Swindell exhibit over there. So they've got, I think, 6 cars over there right now, and I don't know if Sammy was watching here tonight, but I can't wait to get over there, man.
Yeah, you and I have not seen
I'm
it
a big
yet, but we're
Sammy
looking forward
fan.
to it.
Most people know. I don't. He might be the guy in my lifetime. You know, I know there's Steve Kinzer, but man, there's something about Sammy Swindell. So go over there and check it out. It's going to be a great exhibit, and I know they've got more. A lot of his own personal items over there you can look at as well. So I want to thank Todd Surprise for all his hard work this weekend for us here at RacinBoys. And again, thanks to everybody for tuning in. For Kirk Elliott, I'm Scott Traylor. Don't forget, we got some live podcasts tonight, don't we, Kurt?
That's right. Check out, got the schedule right on the homepage. All over the country tonight.
From Washington to Georgia, we got you covered.
We got it all going on RacinBoys tonight.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Kirk, I'm Scott. We'll see you later.